Folks, Victoria 3's 1.5 open beta is going to receive its next and last update before the full release of the patch in November next week, and it is a massive one. Today's dev diary explained what is happening, and I thought it would be a good idea to summarize what the devs are adding. We're not just getting great troop animations, new ship models, colonial tags, no, we are also getting pollution, performance tweaks, and more in-depth military features and narrative content all around. I will walk you through it one by one so that you are well informed, but it's a bit of a long one, so definitely sit down, get some tea, and you know what, let's just jump straight in without any further ado. Let's start by discussing the military side of things. First of all, we're now getting multiple simultaneous battles per frontline. This is of course a welcome change, since frontlines now merge whenever they are adjacent, potentially leading to very long theaters that would otherwise only ever have one simultaneous battle. The way they are implementing this appears to be directly tied to the amount of generals that you have at any given frontline. Each general appears to choose one state that they then repeatedly attack. While I generally am in favor of a more fluid approach to how advances function, I am concerned here when it comes to the balancing of it all. The dev diary is really vague on what exactly happens if you have fewer generals defending than your enemy has attacking. Additionally, I am skeptical when it comes to the overall balance of having multiple battles per frontline, as until now the replenishment rate of battalions in their barracks was balanced around the idea of having only one battle per frontline. We will have to see how it actually feels when we get our hands on it next week, but honestly, it is a change that has to be made even if there may be some initial growing pains. Moving past that, the open beta will now also get functional naval battles. While convoy raiding and protection missions still won't work properly, you will now be able to attack and defeat, for example, naval invasions on the ocean. The way it will work is centered around individual admirals of a formation losing battles, which then stops them from continuing to execute their assigned order. Only when a naval formation returns to their port will said admiral then be reactivated. Honestly, I hope that this will at least be fun gameplay-wise, as the Navy has long struggled with even that, but I think that, more than any other warfare system in the game, the Navy still needs a total revamp. Check out my recent video on this topic if you want to know more when it comes to my thoughts about this. I don't want to spend too much time here since, well, that video exists. Next up, conscription has been deactivated in the open beta since launch, but it is now making a comeback. Conscription returns in a more flexible and customizable way. You assign conscription centers in certain states to an army and can then both raise and demobilize the battalions resulting from this, as you see fit during wars. Previously, conscription centers distributed their conscripts amongst all army formations in a strategic region. I, for one, am really eager to try out this system, as of course until now it was impossible to check how conscription-based warfare models would work with a new army formation system. Let's hope that it works just fine. Additionally, we are now also getting a fully fleshed out mechanic when it comes to unit experience and unit upgrades. Battalions and flotillas will now start accumulating experience and gain veterancy levels. Veterancy will affect offense and defense, but especially high levels can yield another benefit, such as for example a higher recovery rate. What I like in particular is that getting your troops to see combat ups their experience increase significantly compared to them just sitting around. But casualties do also actually bring down the accumulated experience, as of course new recruits count against that. We are also getting full unit upgrades, which means that you can push existing units from, for example, being line infantry to being skirmish infantry. When upgrading, a percentage of the formation's total forces will change their type to the new unit type every week and lose a level of veterancy in the process, as they need to get accustomed to the new equipment and tactics. You could interrupt the upgrade process as well, in case that you suddenly find that you can't, for example, pay for the more advanced unit type. All in all, the way this is handled combined with unit experience seems extremely promising. I think this should add a lot to how you plan and execute your wars. And speaking of executing your wars, the devs have also added multiple battle conditions that mean to wrap up battles that are all but decided. Until now, battles where one side is clearly lost would still take weeks to end, but that will no longer be the case. The pursuit battle condition makes it so that the winning side will mop up the remaining enemy forces considerably quicker, and will always trigger if the battle has pivoted enough for one side to be the clear winner. On the other side, the panicked retreat and the controlled retreat conditions are available to less and more experienced commanders respectively. Since we can now have multiple battles per frontline, and since these new retreat and pursuit conditions will speed up battles in general, I really do wonder what the new death tolls per war will roughly be looking like. But now onwards from the military and onto a truly dirty affair that I am personally a huge fan of: food, pollution and population growth. The open beta has made some far-reaching changes to population growth, and while those changes certainly won't be final, is now introducing a new and really cool factor to it all: pollution. Pollution as a feature is already present in the game as a tracked number, but it had no impact beyond some visual changes so far. Going forward, pollution will be generated by your buildings and impact the state the industry is in. The higher the pollution impact, the worse will the standard of living, the migration attraction, and indeed also the mortality of your population be. I am, quite frankly, a massive fan of this, as it makes it so that there is an alternative late-game feature that impacts population growth other than the raw standard of living. Pollution was, and of course is, a huge factor in the industrial development of a society, and what I love here more than anything is that the health insurance law will play a role as far as mitigating its effects are concerned. The entire feature also comes with its own map mode and is, all in all, my candidate for the dark horse of this update. The raw impact that health insurance currently has on mortality can be reduced with this feature in mind, as health insurance can now focus much more heavily on creating a life worth living in an industrialized world instead. As somebody that has played around with pop growth changes extensively in the past, I can tell you that that is a huge boon for the design of the healthcare law, and indeed pop growth balancing in general. I am extremely excited to play around with all that and really do think that it can have a positive impact on the population growth curve in the game itself, which, well, makes up everything going on. Huge fan. Seriously. What's more, local prices and companies have received some refinements so that the AI is more capable at utilizing them, and the UI surrounding both appears to have been improved as well. Moving on from these major mechanical adjustments, however, let's discuss some narrative changes. First, we got some changes to colonial administrations and colonial possessions in general. You will now be able to hand over your colonial properties to a colonial administration tag that is generated dynamically for one of the 4 major uncolonized strategic regions of Africa. I am personally very happy about this. Something similar existed in Victoria 2 already, and in both cases it is probably more of a roleplay option than something that you ought to do for gameplay purposes. This feature goes quite a bit further than Victoria 2's features as well, also letting you choose how the administration should act, but I can hardly see it as something that you do unless you are, like me, primarily a role player. I hope that going forward, these dynamic tags become a must for effective and relatively cheap colonial administration, as right now it still seems to me like it would be better to hold these territories yourself, as you will surely be better at building in them than a poor and underdeveloped local AI nation. Of course, as mentioned already, these administrations should ultimately become an absolute must. But beyond this, colonial possessions are also likely to look a lot more aesthetically pleasing going forward, as the AI is now going to be more inclined to use the new state trading feature to exchange partially owned states in Africa, as you can see right here. While I do also hope that colonization as a whole changes quite a bit in the future, both of these steps should already be quite excellent. All of this, quite frankly, seems like the perfect groundwork for whatever the expansion coming next year will be doing as far as power blocks and, well, your colonies are concerned. Going forward, we are also getting a few new formables, most importantly my beloved Holy Roman Empire. And Italy has gotten a genuinely great rework for how you can push for its unification. Not just that, but you can now, in general, send agitators friendly to your government to foreign nations that hold homelands of your primary culture, so that unrest is fomented and a secession movement becomes more likely, that then, of course, you can intervene in. Poland has also received a facelift and now allows you to get your fellow Poles to rise up in neighboring countries, ultimately to unify with you and potentially lead the good old Commonwealth to renewed glory. Some other unifications were added as well as content for when you found the Holy Roman Empire, but as a republic. All of the narrative changes in this 1.5 update seem absolutely glorious to me, and I love the general design strategy the developers have chosen for them. Now, while this already was a lot, there's still some content coming in next week's update. Interest group attraction and powers stemming from laws will be getting some adjustments that I can only warmly welcome. Instead of simply giving flat bonuses to interest groups, certain laws now simply strengthen certain profession types, or change how exactly a pop will align themselves with interest groups. For example, homesteading will allow farmers to align with the petite bourgeoisie, as they have acquired a certain level of wealth that is no longer really adequate for the rural folk. This is absolutely gorgeous all around, as it should make the interplay of everything you do and the difference between societies with relatively different laws much more interesting. We are also getting several new interest group traits, as you can see right here, to make it more interesting to play different countries. This should, once more, make countries feel more unique with how you play optimally with each of them. And with that, let's move on to some eye candy. As you can see, we are getting new unit illustrations, new boats, and of course, new unit animations all around. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but I don't exactly think that what the guys on the right are doing is safe. But I just want to give you my opinion here in short. If I could make a collective entity a marriage proposal, I would most certainly be choosing the Victoria 3's art team. It's all just so pretty. With this, we should now also be seeing fully functional unit dioramas on our front lines for the first time ever, and I can't wait for it. Lastly, the devs have done some performance tweaks that will hopefully enable us to have a smoother experience all around. The lackluster performance of the game after about 1890 or 1900 are no secret for most players. Previously, the devs cut down on pop fragmentation already, but are doing this even more so now. Populations within a market are now apparently going to migrate in bigger waves rather than in general trickles. This is somewhat similar to mass migration target migration waves, but what it looks like exactly, as well as what actual impact on performance it is going to have, remains to be seen. Additionally, pops now also have a complex job satisfaction value that, should it be too high, can exclude said pop for new job searches or potential migration target searches. This, too, should simplify calculations on this topic and aid in better performance. Both of these changes sound great on paper, but I'm going to be rather conservative on this topic and say that we have to wait for whether any performance impact can actually be felt, because, well, that is what matters. Nonetheless, I think it's fair to say that the hunt for better performance is clearly on. And with this, we are at the end of today's extremely long dev diary. The update next week looks spectacular to me, and let me just tell you that Victoria 3 roleplay playthroughs with this are back on the menu. I, for one, am extremely looking forward to all of this, and will definitely be doing some playthroughs of my own right here on the channel. Let me know what you think of all of this, what you think about it, and what you think about my opinions. For the moment though, I will see you later, alligator.